Oh my goodness, really? Oh, now it's about men valuing women. How about women valuing men and what they do for them every day of the week? How about we talk about that? Because that's not discussed enough by the conservatives, by libertarians, politicians, social media commentators. Nobody seems to notice that except for dudes in this space. That's it. Nobody cares about it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sheared podcast. I'm your host, Austin Green, and my friends, today we're going to discuss why your favorite conservative content creator is not talking about relationships and the realities thereof. You know, I haven't heard anybody else use this exact example, but I'm going to pioneer this, as it were. There's this idea that I've come up with that's kind of pulled from the church and from the Reformation, which is this idea of Puritans versus Pragmatists. So Puritans are people who were very idealistic. They were very, hey, this is the way things should be, this is the way they ought to be, and so we're going to hold this extremely high standard up here. Pragmatists are a little more realistic. They're a little more, hey, you know what, we see the realities of life, we see how things can play out practically, and so we're going to go for kind of almost a compromise of using these ideals, but we're more in the truth area. This is the way things are, instead of this is how it ought to be. And unfortunately, a lot of Tradcons or traditional conservatives, they use this ideation of Puritanism in regards to relationships and in regards to politics in general, which, I mean, everything is political now. I remember when I grew up, politics wasn't dipping its beak into every single beaker of the entire society, but today it's almost unavoidable. Whatever you turn on, whatever you listen to, whatever appears on your screen, something has some political subtext behind it. And so while this show is not always about politics, it definitely comes up. And so for us to not address it, we'd be doing ourselves a disservice. So today I have a couple of examples of content creators, the conservative types, discussing relationships and seeing why a lot of them shy away from this really controversial conversation. And gentlemen, you especially, ladies, if you're listening, you can relate to this as well. We see the harsh realities of relationships, and the ancients, whether it's Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all of these types, they've written about relationships, the dynamics, and whatnot from the get-go. They've discussed this at length. If you read the ancients, you'll realize that nothing is really new under the sun. It just seems like it because we have technology, access to information. We've overcomplicated things that men and women who lived long before us figured out a long time ago. And I've said this before, and I know some of you are going to immediately dismiss this, and I don't blame you. It's going to come off in a way that you're not used to hearing, but I'm going to say it anyway. Men and women were born equal, with equal ability to manipulate and with equal leverage over the other. For men, it's usually we're physically stronger, versus women are usually more emotionally savvier than we are as men. And because of technology, because of the emasculated culture we live in, a lot of us are not in tune with the physical side and have been completely and utterly exploited to the hellscape on the emotional side. And a lot of us, we've seen this in real time. If you're older, you've seen this slow and gradual descent. If you're young, this is all you've ever known. And for me, this is really all I've ever known. I've seen bits and pieces when I was a little bit younger, but it wasn't better. It was just slightly less obvious. So I'll give you a little bit of that red meat right out the gate. Chew it slowly, do what your mother said. But before we pull up the clips, I would like to invite you to say your piece, to let your voice be heard. Even if I don't like what you have to say, I'd rather you say it because it creates dialogue. It creates conversations that most people are too afraid to have. Or if you're on Twitter, it just immediately descends into an entire garbage can dumpster fire, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to have frank conversations about how the truth and our ideals merge together, and we can have the most practical way to live out our lives that's in line with the philosophical or religious standards that we have. Speaking of standards, let's go to Ben Shapiro. A lot of you know who he is. I don't agree with a lot of things he says or done, especially in regards to Candace Owens, but he says a lot of things that I think are right on the money. Whether he believes it or not is a different story, but we're going to listen to him and what he says on marriage. Take it away, please, Mr. Shapiro.
Really gave up on marriage a lot too soon. Okay, marriage was the best thing ever for women. It is an amazing thing for men too, because it civilizes them, it cultures them, it teaches them to be protectors of their family and to take care of people and to think beyond themselves and to think beyond their generation. Women gave up in marriage a way to teach men to do those things. And also, women gave up the idea that a commitment was going to come along with this intimacy. And let's be real about this. I mean, every scientific study ever done has shown that women actually do have better sex in the context of committed relationships. All of the crap that you see in Cosmo magazine about sleeping with 100 guys and being sexually happy is just garbage. It is just sheer unadulterated garbage.
Well, tell that to the feminists who seem to be loving it and eating it up every second of it. I mean, look, gentlemen, this is what we're talking about when I say this ideological standpoint. Is he factually incorrect? Not from where I'm standing, no. But one thing I think he did leave out that is incredibly important and pregnant in this conversation is this idea of domesticating men. Most men are already domesticated. You ever read the story or watched the Disney adaptation of Beauty and the Beast? Of course you have. Most people have. Do you know why women love vampire novels, werewolf movies, the idea of this beast of a man being rugged and edgy and whatnot, but then this woman comes in and she turns this beast into a man. You know why women find that so romantic? Because that is what every woman on a biological level wants to do for her man. If the man's already domesticated, he is boring, uninterested, and she gets entirely uninterested very quickly. That is why when we look at the traditional dynamics between men and women, the man is typically more of a beast, and the woman slowly tries to make this man less of a beast and into a better balanced man. Now today, the government, education system, entertainment does that for them, so they don't even need to do that anymore, and that's why they go for Pookie. You know who Pookie is, right? Pookie's the guy who dealt drugs at her high school. The guy who rode the lowrider who told the teachers to shut the F up. He was the edgy dude who got all the chicks at a very young age. Now, he peaked out, and she got over him, found out he was a loser, and had a dusty, and broke by the time she turned about 25 to 30, most of the time. But this is why young women love these edgy, borderline abusive men. No, I'm not justifying anything. I'm saying this is how it works. And if you don't believe me, please take a walk outside, go on the internet, and look this stuff up. Ask a woman what she reads on the romance. Go to a Barnes & Noble and look at the romance novel section and look at what you have to deal with here. You have stalkers, you have werewolves, vampires, fairies, all these, grizzled veteran dudes whose wife gets butchered, whatever. This is what you see in the romance novel section. It's not the kind of noble, wonderful, chivalrous guy. I mean, sometimes, but even then, he usually starts off the complete opposite. Or if he is the chivalrous nice guy, he has a lot of money, has a lot of power, and everything else. This is what is being left out of the conversation, and why a lot of men who are nice dudes feel as though they're being left behind. They're like, well, women say they want this from me, and yet I seem to be giving them what it is they say they want, but then I'm not getting the results I've been promised. And the answer is right baked into it, because you're not being told the whole truth. I've made this entire analogy before on this show, and it's when you say you are applying for a job, right? And it says, we're looking for someone who is really good with people, a good team player, is very good at communicating about, themselves and to their teammates and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, well, that's great. That describes me. I can do that. And then you click to apply, and right as you're about to do that, you look below and you see the fine print, and it says, must have bachelor's degree. must have X number of years of experience, must have good recommendation, must have this and must have that. That is the fine print in the job application that they don't advertise up front. In the same way that women don't advertise they want a guy who's 6 feet, has a six-pack, he makes a six-figure job, and all these things. Does this mean that a woman won't change that for you if you're that guy? No. But you see, this is what it's what you're not being told that is entirely derailing the conversation, which is why I bring up the Puritans and the Pragmatists, because the Puritans will leave that part out because they don't like the fact that it's true. So what they'll do instead is they'll leave it out. The Pragmatists will bring it up, and then they'll get persecuted for bringing it up because it's not about what you said in the content, it's what they felt in the context. That's what they didn't like. Speaking of what they didn't like and context and everything, let's go to Matt Walsh, one of Ben Shapiro's good friends on the Daily Wire, and let's see what he has to say. Very, very popular content creator on YouTube and on TikTok and in the conservative space. Let's see what he has to say about relationships, shall we?
It's just not true, okay? It's just not true that a life of obscene luxury and materialism and selfishness and self-service and of, sleeping with many different women and all of that, it's not true that that is the ideal. Much less is it what we are biologically programmed to desire.
What?
No, it's what we're culturally programmed to desire. That is the cultural programming. If I could do my life over from the start, I would find my wife again and marry her again. If I lived 100 lives, I'd marry her in all of them. That's what it means to love somebody. And love is the ideal.
Oh,
hell no!
You lied to me.
Okay, wow. You see, this is the problem right here. This is the garbage that so many men are told. This is the garbage that is pushed in the church. This is the garbage that you see on social media, and this is the sewage that is being pushed on young men into hating themselves, hating their bodies, being misguided and undecided. This is why you are seeing what you're seeing in young men today. They're totally ignoring biology. Oh, so you mean the ancients who wrote about sowing their oats and picking the cherry blossoms and the flowers? You know what that was? You knew what that was. You mean to tell me that men are not biologically programmed to get with as many women as possible? That is nonsense. Complete and utter lies. That is exactly the opposite of the truth. Men since the beginning of time. Why do you think God said be fruitful and multiply? Do you think he said that and, I know you only want one woman? No! No one has ever done that. The only men who only want one woman are men who can't get more than one woman. They can't. Because they have no options, no opportunities, and nothing going on. That's like someone saying, oh, I wouldn't spend $100,000 on a new pair of shoes. You don't even have $100,000, much less to spend on shoes. Of course you wouldn't, because you can't. It's the same thing when it comes to women. The men who want to sit there and be like, oh, I would find my wife all over again and marry her. Oh, really? You mean to tell me you would live a completely different life? Is this some anime now? Am I listening to some fantasy romance novel now where, I could search for 1,000 years, but I'll find you again, my love. People only say that to get laid. The whole thing is just ridiculous, but okay. I get it. You want to believe it. You like the way it sounds. You like the way it feels, so you want to believe it. Okay. All right, fine. Well, if that's the case, then how do you explain that the marriage rates are going down and divorce rates are going up? How do you explain all these things? Well, there's a gentleman right here who's going to attempt to explain this to us, and let me know what you think. You agree or disagree?
I've got a new question for you guys. Why do you think guys no longer want to get married?
Ooh, I don't think we're ready for that conversation. See, I've been happily married for about 8 years. Actually, we've been married that long, we've never even had a fight.
What?
I am a huge advocate for marriage. But here's the problem. There's a lot of reasons why people aren't getting married nowadays. And it's not just because men don't want to get married. One, we have devalued marriage. when everyone thinks they have to move in together, date somebody for 6 years, and do all these different things before you even might consider marrying somebody, you have devalued marriage. Basically, let me take it out for a test drive before I make a commitment. So let me live with you for a while before I even make a decision. Well, then you have all the benefits of being married, living together, without the actual covenant, without the actual promise with each other. 2, when it comes to divorces or things that might happen, the risk of being married, oftentimes the courts side with a woman when it comes to child custody and things.
No kidding. There are probably men in this comment section right now who will tell you stories about their very amicable divorce. And I mean that sarcastically. Gentlemen, when we look at a guy like this, what do you see? I'll tell you what I see. I see a guy who says, I haven't been in an argument with my wife. That means one of two things. 1, your marriage is perfect, which I doubt. Or 2, you've been a complete sub this whole time, and you are the one who caves into what she wants, and based upon your tone of voice and your look, I can see the second one being true. And I'm not trying to diss this guy. I don't know him. I'm just calling it as I see it, and if you think that that's being mean, I don't know what to tell you.
And things like that. Now, granted, nowadays it seems like they're getting a little bit better about shared custody.
No, they're
but
not.
Generally speaking, it doesn't go in the man's favor.
Don't fall for that. It's not getting better.
3, we tell people all the time now that they shouldn't get married early in life. You're 20 years old, 22, you're too early to get married.
No. You see, here's the problem. Men aren't being told that. Women are the ones being told that, not men. Men are more... I know men personally, and this might be anecdotal. I know men personally who are the same age as me. They're married. So don't sit here and tell me that the dudes are not wanting to get married out here. If you're talking about men, you're talking about a very small percentage of men at the very top of the food chain who don't have to be married because they have so much punani they don't know what to do with all of it. Those are not the average dude. Average dude has 7 partners over the course of his entire life? So don't sit here and tell me that the average guy wouldn't be happy to be married. Oh, yes, he would. Oh, yes, he would. He'd still take the risk, even though the risk is completely stacked against him. He'd still do it. But the thing is, he can't even do it today. And thank God that men are waking up to this deception. Let's continue.
Live your life and enjoy it, which implies that you won't enjoy life afterwards if you get married. So a lot of people live until they're about 30 or whatever, and single or just dating casually, might have some kids with some people, and they go, well, life's been pretty good up to this point. Why get married? Because we really have become more career focused than family focused.
Again, who is this we we're talking about? Are you talking about you? Men? Women? Aliens? Who are we talking about? The church? Who is we? Who is we?
Now, we have also become very self-focused as a selfish culture. Do what makes you happy.
Again, we are being so subtle and we're not being direct about the issue here. And it's getting me really mad, but I'm going to hold my tongue.
Not realizing that if you get in a marriage, you are committed to somebody else. And when you are committed to somebody else, you serve that other person selflessly. And actually, in a way, that actually becomes more fulfilling than if you weren't. And you're only living for yourself.
This dude better be talking to women because they are the ones filing the divorces. And if you ask lawyers, which we'll get to a lawyer in a second, when you talk to lawyers, as someone who's gotten my undergrad in pre-law and who wants to go to law school, let me tell you something. The lawyers will tell you that in divorce courts, the women are the ones who want retribution, and usually the dude walks in there and he's like, all right, I'll split things up 50-50. I want my kids 50% of the time. I want to move on. The woman says, oh no, I'm going to make an example out of this guy and I better get what I'm owed. That's how it normally works. You ask any divorce attorney who's honest and they'll tell you that. I'll tell you that. I've met them. I've had this conversation. But guess what? He better be talking about that because if he wants to pin this on men, we about to get real heated right now because this dude is setting you up for failure. If he's saying this is men's fault, oh, hell no. I don't think so.
Oh, hell no.
So the culture just keeps doing this, and we keep promulgating it. And again, if you want people to get married, men, you have to value women more than just for someone to have fun.
Oh, of course he pins it back on men. Of course he does, because that's what everyone seems to do. Oh my goodness. Bro, I wanted to believe in you. You were... Anakin, you were the chosen one. You failed me. I was kind of with you, kind of going in, going out of what you were saying, and now you lost me. Oh my goodness, really? Oh, now it's about men valuing women. How about women valuing men and what they do for them every day of the week? How about we talk about that? Because that's not discussed enough by the conservatives, by libertarians, politicians, social media commentators. Nobody seems to notice that except for dudes in this space. That's it. Nobody cares about it.
With and hook up with or whatever. Women, if you want men.
Women are the gatekeepers to intimacy, sir, not men. If men try to do that, it's a crime. So don't blame men for hookup culture. How can you blame men for hookup culture? That doesn't make any sense. Women are the ones who are the gatekeepers to intimacy, sir. If men try to circumnavigate that, they go straight to jail. What are you talking about?
And to value you in marriage, then don't give up all the stuff that a man is supposed to earn in marriage. You know, sex, living with you, all the benefits of living and doing the thing together. Those are valuable. I know this is unpopular.
Okay, good. Now he's actually starting to say something that makes sense. Okay, how long will this last?
Nowadays. I know it's extremely unpopular nowadays. But that's the reality. There's a reason why in the golden age of America, essentially, you have couples that were married at an extremely early age and were married for 60 plus years. Nowadays, marriages end in only a few, and that's because we don't value each other, we don't value marriage, and we're not telling people to live selflessly.
No, that's only part of the reason. The other part of the reason is because your friend Ronald Reagan was the first one to pass no-fault divorce in 1969 in California, which then was adopted in some variant form across the entire, all 50 states of the United States, which then, in the 70s, the divorce rate doubled, and then... So, you really think there's not a correlation at the very least, or a causation at best? What do you think? I think there might be.
So, I think there's a lot of reasons for it, but I think those are some of the big ones. We have devalued marriage, and therefore we have devalued men and women.
I definitely think he danced around the issues a little bit, but overall... See, what is wrong with people saying it the way it is? You want to hear someone say it the way it is? This is James Saxon. He's a lawyer. He's apparently got a decent-sized channel now. Shout out to him. But he is a divorce lawyer. I have met men like him in school. One of them was a judge. They are very jaded, and they will tell you the truth straight to your face. I don't mean jaded like they're stupid or they're damaged. They just have had the complete scrub off of all the romance, and the cherry-colored lens has been scrubbed off of them multiple times over. Let's see what he has to say about divorce and marriage.
If you break it down fundamentally, 56% of marriages end in divorce. But think about, that's the ones that end in divorce. So how many people, what percentage stay together for the kids? Or because they don't want to give away half their shit? Another 10%? That's conservative.
Conservative.
But let's say 20% then, okay?
That's at least right.
You now have a technology that fails 76% of the time. That's insane.
Attention, Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, and all these other schmucks who want to pretend like this is not an issue. Yeah, I have a big issue. But this is why your traditional conservative friends in the media don't like to discuss this, because it's not popular, because the normies don't like to hear this. They think, oh, I'm not going to be a statistic, Austin. It's going to be fine. All you got to do is, all you got to do is value women. All you got to do is do the chores. All you got to do is just do the housework. Okay.
This is getting weird.
That's insane. That's more likely than not. 76%. If I told you there's a 76% chance when you walk out the door today you're going to get hit in the head with a bowling ball, you would not go out, or you'd wear a helmet for sure.
Bingo.
But people just continue to get married. Not only do they continue to get married, there's a presumption that you should get married. And if you don't get married, there's something wrong with you. So if you've got a girlfriend and you've been with her for 5 years, and you say to someone, we're getting married, they go, oh, that's great. You know, they don't go, why? You're happy. Why would you get married? Like, everything's going fine. Why would you?
See, this is the normie mindset that I talk about on this show. The oxygen thieves, the people who are robots, real life robots. You want to talk about AI? People are like robots out here. They're so brainwashed with what they think is good, what they think is bad. They don't question anything. And this is what James Saxon is talking about. He's saying, you're so brainwashed that if you walked outside and you thought that something was going to fall on your head and there was a 76% chance you got hit in the head with the bowling ball, you probably wouldn't just walk outside. You'd take precautions. You'd be careful. You'd minimize that risk. But people don't do that with marriage. People don't do that in relationships because, oh, that's toxic. Oh, that's not good. We don't like that. And it's seen as a morally good thing to do to just jump in. Oh, my land. If I told you that you had a 76% chance of walking outside and a robber was standing out there with a proverbial Glock to your head and said, give me half of the stuff in your wallet, you probably wouldn't do that, right? But yet, you'll do that 20 years from now when they fleece you for half of your stuff in the family court system. I mean, come on, man.
Would you put yourself through that? Why would you run that risk? If you say to someone, we've been together 5 years and we've decided we're not going to get married. We're going to move in together, but we're not going to get married. Ooh, what's wrong? You have intimacy issues? What's your problem? Meanwhile, 56% end in divorce. It's literally fits the legal definition of negligence. It's a negligent behavior.
I wasn't even going to talk about that, but I'm glad that he did.
The way you define negligence in law school is when what you lose by not doing something, okay, is lower than the risk of harm. It's what's called a BPL analysis. So the burden of not doing a thing is lower than the likelihood, the probability of harm. So
I'm glad he points this out because I learned about this in my law classes in college. You can literally, and this is not legal advice, I don't have a law degree yet, but what I will tell you is, based on my understanding, you can literally sue people for negligence, but in the marriage context, it can fit the definition of negligence, but yet you're volunteering for a potentially negligent situation that you're going to have to pay for to get out of. That's how ridiculous it is, if you look at it from a logical perspective and not one of romance and love.
BPL, so burden, probability, and loss. Marriage is an inherently negligent activity. It's like owning a lion. Like the likelihood of someone getting hurt seriously by this is very, very high. No one ever says it to you because why? Because, I would say something. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I still get misty-eyed at weddings. Like I still really, there's something in me that goes like, maybe it'll work out for these two.
I'm so glad he pointed that out. I was going to point that out, but I was like, no, I don't think people are ready for that. But I'm glad he pointed out the negligence aspect of it. See, this might be a little too legal jargon heavy for people, but this is something that when you get into the legal field, you care a lot about. And I'm loving the fact that a lot of divorce lawyers are discussing this more and more on YouTube, on TikTok, on these platforms, and on Instagram, on Twitter, because this is something most people, most normies, most ostriches who put their head in the sand types, they don't want to accept this reality, and it's very apparent and it's very in your face. Speaking of in your face, I thought I'd share something funny with all y'all on the show today. I was on Twitter last night, and I'll show you something that came up on my timeline. Don't worry, it's not YouTube. Don't trip. This is not I know that there are different rules, but this is not something that's bad. So I saw this post. It says 2 great reasons not to be non-heterosexual. And you see a picture of a woman's jugs and one of her hips. And I said, okay, so women basically are saying, hey, don't sexualize us, but then proceed to post this. And this is a woman, by the way, who posted this. And then here's what I wanted to troll. And here's what I said. I said 2 reasons to be not straight. And then I said, I put a GIF, whatever you call it, of Donald Duck with saying child support while he's counting money. And then I want a divorce on the other side. And I thought it was funny. And apparently people got kind of mad about that. They were like, oh, that's messed up. It was funny, man. But see, this is the kind of thing you have to find truth. There has to be some kind of humor. If there's no humor present, you can go crazy looking at this kind of stuff. You can go crazy from it, because the world is full of hypocrisy, half-truths, total deceptions. And this is one of the reasons why I bring up the Puritan versus the pragmatist argument, because when you only will accept the ideal, you're going to be disappointed. But when you approach things from a realistic point of view, you see things for how they are, you then can adapt and adjust to live a life that of maximum fulfillment possible while minimizing risky behaviors that could set you back, that could sabotage your success that you are achieving. And this is why I bring this up. Not so that you can resent anybody, not that so you can be unhappy and enraged, but so that you can understand the realities that most people will not tell you, or that will actively try to deceive you on to exploit you. And so when we discuss this in very explicit detail, when we bring up uncomfortable truths, and when we expose the biases and expose the underlying issues in society, especially around relationships, which in my opinion are the most important decision you'll make in your life. I don't do it because I don't like people. I don't do it because I don't like a demographic. I do it because I myself almost gave a girl a promise ring once. Yes, I did. And you know what? I'm glad that it didn't work out for me. I'm glad that she cheated on me and I learned about it. And so guess what? I dodged a bullet. I don't resent her, not for 1 second. But of course, a lot of people would stay in that resentment. Don't stay in it. Accept the realities of the world, because the truth, like it says in the Bible, the truth will set you free. It won't make you comfortable, it won't make you happy, it never promises that. It promises you that it will set you free. But a lot of people, they don't want to be free. They want to be free to be traditional. They want to be free to do what they want, but not be free to adjust and adapt and pay the price for the things that they desire. My friends, I encourage you to do your own research. Always think for yourself and not just accept what I say or what anybody else says, because that's just not getting the full, complete perspective. But until next time, my friends, please leave your comments and your stories below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you like the video, you know what to do. I'm not going to beg. You know what to do. My friends, take care of yourselves. I'm out of here. Peace.